up, no, no. Show me something, a sign of something.
Hello and happy Tuesday. I know another non-video audio only episode, but since I have family over right now, I can't really record, so we are just going to stick with audio at least until a little bit into July. But I promise I will be resuming video episodes per usual. So don't get too mad at me. We're going to continue, we're going to continue, okay? Today, I want to talk about something that kind of sounds like a contradiction, but I'm going to explain why it's not a contradiction. Take this slowly, right? Setting boundaries to remain soft. I'm going to say that one more time. Setting boundaries so that you can remain soft. So oftentimes, when we are in the process of learning how to set boundaries, learning how to communicate those boundaries respectfully, and learning how to not be as reactive, we are oftentimes, not all the time, oftentimes, we are in a consistent stage of defense. We are defensive about everything around us. We are defensive and very reactionary. When we're learning how to set boundaries, when we're learning how to communicate those things, it's a very rocky path that you walk, especially if you've never walked it before. It can be a very long and sometimes ruthless journey. And when we're in the stage of figuring out how to set boundaries, we oftentimes blame others. We kind of mirror our insecurities onto others. And then we just get really fucking frustrated. And sometimes we take it out on the wrong fucking people. So when you are in the stage of understanding, okay, this is how I can communicate how I'm feeling. This is what I'm going to do when I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed, right? Because a lot of the times, and this is something that I'm learning to be careful with my words, learning to not, if I feel myself getting extremely heated and I feel like I'm going to say something very hurtful, walking away or saying, I'm not going to have this conversation right now, because that's fair. That's a fair thing to do when you're somebody who often battles with your words and tend to hurt people with your words, right? Effectively walking away from a situation, right? Until you are calm and able to have an adult conversation with another person. But when you learn how to set proper boundaries from the beginning of a relationship, this is platonic and romantic. I never like to specify unless it's about something that's solely experienced in a romantic relationship. So when I say relationship, I almost often always mean both romantic or platonic, because platonic friendships are almost the things that make up a healthy platonic relationship are pretty much all the same to a romantic. The only difference is that sex is typically involved in a romantic relationship, while it's not often involved with your platonic ones. I'm not here to judge. I mean, you might sleep with your friends, but I think then you're moving into more of a romantic relationship as opposed to a platonic one, right? But when you learn how to set your boundaries from the beginning of a relationship, when you are learning to set your boundaries at the start of a relationship, platonic or romantic, it effectively gives you the opportunity to remain soft with the person, to move out and beyond a defensive, tough outer core. So I know this very well within myself, that the way that I react, with certain things is very much always on the defensive. I'm always feeling like, okay, this person is going to fuck me over. So, therefore, I am going to have my little shields up ready to fight this person in a battle of epic fisticuffs before they've even, picked up their hands to fight with me. And I know a lot of people will be like, yeah, you have to be ready to fight the battle. But sometimes, and most times, as an adult in the world that is learning how to communicate with other adults in a healthy way, you understand that sometimes you have to be the one to put your swords down first, to put your fists down first, so to be ready to say, you know what, I'm not going to fight with you. And if that's all you're here to do is fight with me, then I'm just going to not engage. I don't want to fight. I don't want this kind of conflict in my life. I don't want this kind of struggle in my life with you or with anybody. Because relationships, and I've said this before, I wrote it on the Daily Potato about, how the hookup culture has very much altered our idea and perception of coupling up, being in a team with somebody, right? Being united with somebody, being in a state where it's like we are stronger together. And I've said this before, and I don't know any kind of backed up science or studies on this. I would have to look it up. But in my perception, in my view of things, in almost every relationship, there is a masculine and a feminine, right? And it's so funny that it's like we created these typicals to describe, the different roles, because I do think that sometimes it can be fucking interchangeable, right? There's some people that have more of like a little masculine type of vibe, right? And that's awesome, right? But we're not going to debate on that because I feel like it creates a lot of useless debating, and I feel like everybody, as long as you're not hurting anybody, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You can live your life however the fuck you want. But when it comes to relationships and how to cultivate healthy relationships, right? You start with setting boundaries so that you can remain in a state of not ready to fight somebody at every drop of the hat, right? It allows you to remain soft. It allows you to remain open. It allows you to remain communicative, right? Because you're in a state where it's like, okay, I feel safe enough to communicate my needs to this person. I feel like if I communicate my needs to this person, they are going to either help, give those needs to me, right? Or if I'm communicating to this person that I don't like something that they're doing, they're going to change it, right? And like I've said before in my last episode, right? When it comes to, communicating and getting into relationships with compatible people, right? You don't get into relationships of any kind with somebody that is not compatible with you. It does not make sense with the way that you want to be loved and the way that you express love. You just save yourself the hassle. If that's the journey that you want to go on, you're going to find out quickly that it does not really exude a lot of peace, and it's not going to be very easy. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to come with its own set of unnecessary hardship. But a lot of us are stubborn and we like to see things through anyways, to see what happens. And I commend you guys for wanting to fucking experiment, but coming from somebody that has experimented quite a bit, it's not fun. It's not fun. I will say that. It's not something that I would recommend. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. If I could give it no stars, I would. But since 1 star is the lowest rating that I can give it, we'll give it a 1 star, right? So when you're in a state of understanding how you're going to set your boundaries with people, how you're going to communicate your needs to people, and how you're going to enforce those boundaries, right? And have I don't want to say a no tolerance policy, but kind of like a no force policy. I'll say that, not a no tolerance policy, a no force policy. So once you communicate or set your boundaries, right, and somebody effectively pushes past those boundaries or does not acknowledge or does not abide by those boundaries, right? It's not like okay, well, unless, and this is in the event that it's not abusive or extremely toxic or a danger to your health, right? It's a no force policy. I'm not going to force anything. I'm just not going to be around you as much. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to keep telling you the same thing over and over again. What do they say about insanity? It's the idea that you're doing something over and over again, hoping for a different outcome. You're doing the same thing over and over again, the exact same way, expecting a different outcome. And when you effectively communicate your boundaries, right, and you're telling a person, hey, person A, these are my boundaries. 1, 2, 3. And then person A is like, okay, but I'm going to treat you like 4, 5, 6. And you as person B is just like, no, but I told you that my boundaries are 1, 2, 3. If you could follow the 1, 2, 3 path, that would be great. And they're just like, no, I'm gonna go by the 4, 5, 6. Right? It's not an argument at that point. You don't really argue with somebody that tells you that the sky isn't blue, right? Like if you look up and you see that the sky is blue and you're talking to somebody and they're just like, no, the sky is purple. What are you talking about? You're not going to sit there and have like a 30-minute debate. Some people will, but typically you're not going to sit there and have a 30-minute debate or longer or 30-year debate with somebody about how the sky is not blue, right? If they want to believe that the sky is purple, then hey, you know what? Good on you, the sky's purple. Follow Keanu Reeves in that frame of mind, right? Absolutely the sky's purple. Do I have to believe what you believe? No. Do I have to continue to share company with you? No. Do I have to continue giving you my energy? Also no, right? So think of it that way. You communicate your boundaries, and the person that you have communicated those boundaries to is telling you, no, right? I don't care about your boundaries. I'm going to push past them. They don't mean that much to me. You don't mean that much to me, right? Because that's essentially what a person is saying. When you communicate your boundaries and they push past them, they're basically saying, I don't really care about what you're telling me. I'm going to continue to do my own thing, and I'm going to kind of drag you along, and I don't really care if it upsets you or anything. And again, that's their right as the person, right? Because you can't control them. That's their right as a human being with autonomy and ability to be able to make their own decisions, right? But when they make their decisions, you can also make yours, right? So you can decide not to go on that ride with that person. You can decide to remove your hand from theirs and just be like, no, I'm okay. Thank you, though. I might see you when you get off of that ride. I might not, but whatever happens, happens. Good luck, right? So you're in a state of trying to communicate your boundaries and not force that on people that are pushing past that. If they do not want to abide by your boundaries, that's fine. Again, that's your choice, but that doesn't mean that I have to remain in this state with you, that I have to try to force you to understand that these are my boundaries and that you should respect them. Walk away. And I will always say that, master the art of walking away and letting it go. I don't know if any of you guys have had dads that go car shopping with you. If you guys have ever gone car shopping with your dad, my dad always tells me this, and I think that it applies perfectly to people, even though I don't like to, relate people to cars, but it's just an example, right? My dad says when you're going in to buy a car, do not get attached and be ready to get up and walk away if they're not going to give you a good deal. Don't get attached. And I do mean that, that should definitely be applied when it comes to people. When you are getting to know somebody, when you are figuring out, yes, I want to date persons, right? Be ready to walk away. Be ready to let go. Be ready to be like, okay, well, I've communicated what I want. I'm going to try to give it the college try. If this person is giving me kind of questionable vibes, or they're giving me, questionable answers that are kind of red flaggy, right? Be ready to walk away. It's just like, okay, this isn't working. And I'm going to tell you guys a funny story because I'm 28 now. So happy late birthday to me. I went out on a date with a guy, right? And this is so funny. My friend He calls him the Gene and Butner. And I'll tell you why. It kind of sounds self-explanatory. But I got asked out at work. This person saw me at my work and he asked me for my number and I was like, "Oh, that's really sweet." He approached me. He was really respectful. He asked me for my name, he introduced himself, he asked for my number, blah blah. As we were texting, before the date, I noticed that he was kind of like abbreviating weird things. Like he was texting kind of weird. Not like texting like not and I don't mean texting weird like he seemed foreign or anything. It just like he was abbreviating weird things. Like he had a weird text style. And, I looked at it, I was like, what the fuck? Confused in late 20s. I was like, what the fuck? So I asked him, I was like, hey, by the way, like, how old are you? And, he takes a while and then he responds and he's like, oh, I'm 22, but emotionally, I feel like I'm 26. I have the maturity of a 26-year-old. And in my mind, I face palmed a little bit. I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay, you're young. You're a young man. All right. Okay. Don't judge book by cover. It's okay. He could be a very kind man and he just likes to abbreviate things, and let's give it a shot. He was very mature when he asked for my number. We're good. So I go on a date with this man. It was a decent enough date. I love intelligent people, mature people, and maturity doesn't always need to correlate to like a 50-year-old, as some people like. There's some people that are my age that kind of have the maturity of somebody who has experienced a lot and has cultivated a lot of knowledge, right? I really, really appreciate emotional and intellectual and maturity and intelligence. It's something that's very attractive to me. So, I was talking to him, and people who know me know that sometimes I use some big words. Not all the time. I wouldn't say that I have like this superior intellect when it comes to speaking, but I think that the way I speak kind of correlates to my age group. And, every other word, when he was asking me to tell him about myself, I guess, he would ask, oh, what's that mean? What's that mean? What's that mean? I was like, oh, fuck. He doesn't understand me. He doesn't get me. And a lot of people would be like, can't you just wait and Google the word after, But I appreciate that he didn't have the filter and he wasn't afraid to ask me what words meant, but it kind of made me feel kind of like a cradle robber. So I was like, ah, shit, I feel like this feels weird. This feels very icky. So, we finish the dinner, we walk. It's end of the date, right? So there's the option like, or are you going to lean in for a kiss? It's kind of like when Vince Vaughn was discussing what you do after a date, right?
Am I eating? Am I talking too much? Are they talking enough? Am I interested? I'm not really interested. Should I play like I'm interested, but I'm not that interested? But I think she might be interested. But do I want to be interested? But now she's not interested. So now all of a sudden I'm starting to get interested. And when am I supposed to kiss her? Do I have to wait for the door? Because then it's awkward. It's like, well, good night. Do you do like the ass out hug? Where you hug each other like this and the ass sticks out because you're trying not to get too...
The kiss, he goes for it. It wasn't... I'm not going to give you guys a play-by-play, but it was interesting. And, the kid went straight for it. He just tried to unbutton the pants. I was wearing jeans. I was like, oh, okay. It's time for me to go. Thank you. So it wasn't... Needless to say, there was a little gap in priority there. I'm past the stage in my life where I really want like a hookup. That's not something that I want, from myself at any point. I do not want a hookup. Hookups seem very impersonal and very sucky. Unless it's like like a full service hookup, like we go out and we have a full day and, we have fun and, we're all like, schmoozy and shit. And then we hook up and then I spend the night and then we have breakfast. Like it needs to be like a full service hookup, like damn near a relationship trial for me to even consider a goddamn hookup at this stage of my life. So it's a no for me. I'm not there anymore. I used to be, not anymore. It's kind of like, ugh. It kind of makes me nauseous at this juncture in my life. But he's younger than me, and he's probably in that stage in his life where he's like looking for somebody to have like a nice like steamy car hookup with, and it's like that's cute. Pero like no. So, I let it go. I let it go. It was an interesting a learning experience for me. But, I tried it out. Didn't judge a book by its cover. I let it play out, and I figured it out, right? But it's cool. Like we're doing cool. We're doing cool. Anyways, happy 4th of July. I hope everybody remains safe. Don't drink and drive. Have fun with your family. I'm going to be posting on the Daily Potato. I'm going to post a recipe for literally my favorite 4th of July pie, which is basically a strawberry cream pie with glazed strawberries on top. Gasp, it's so good. I've made it with 2 different types of crusts, like kind of like an actual like doughy crust and then like a chocolate Oreo crust. Both are 10 out of 10. Delicioso. Not too sweet, but hey, if you're watching your sugar, maybe don't go for that one. Anyways, I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye now.